6.4. The difference of cubes and sum of cubes. The only difference between these two is a minus and a plus. Hence the word difference is minus, sum is plus. And the only difference between the answers are where the minuses are. For the difference of cubes, the minus is the first piece. For the sum of cubes, the minus is the second piece. Otherwise, everything else is the same. Now, the key to these problems, say number 1, is you first need to know what your A and B are. So what you do is you break this down into something cubed times something cubed. So you have to figure out A and B. So this first one, hopefully you can realize that's x cubed. And 125, hopefully you understand that is 5 cubed. By the way, you're going to need to know your cubes from 1 to 8. Usually all mine I'll keep between 1 and 8 cubed. You need to know what those are. That takes some practice in itself. Now, this is your A, this is your B. Which of these are we going to use? Is this a sum or difference of cubes? Which one is it? It is a difference of cubes, so we're going to use this formula right here. So it's going to be something like this. And according to this formula, the minus goes first. There's a minus there, and these both are going to be pluses. So according to the formula, it's just a squared, AB, B squared. So AB, so this is going to be x and 5. And then it's a squared, so x is a, so it's going to be x squared. And then it's AB, so x times 5 is 5x. And then it's b squared, and b is 5, so this is 25. This is factored form. This right here will never factor. Makes it easy. This, don't even try it, it won't factor. You're done. Okay. Now, number 2 is not a difference of cubes, but is there a GCF? Yes. Hopefully you realize here there is an x that comes out, leaving you 64 x cubed plus 1, which, if we pull out that x, leave it out, now inside we have to notice the cubes. Can I just ignore the x outside? Yeah. We're going to factor the inside. 64 is what cubed? It's actually, you probably don't know that yet, but it's 4 cubed. So 4x times 4x times 4x is 64 cubed. And 1 kind of confuses people, but 1 cubed is 1. It's an easy one. It's easy but confusing for some people. So we have A, we have B. Leave the x out front, ignore it for now. So we leave the x out, and then we're going to have blank, and then we're going to have blank. Now, this is a sum of cubes. So looking at the formula for sum of cubes, do you see how the plus goes first, the minus goes second? So this is going to be a plus, there's a minus, there's a plus. And then according to the formula, we just put our A's in and B's in and do what it says. So AB, so A was 4x, B is 1. Now here's what's going to mess people up. This right here is A squared. What's 4x squared? Most people say, oh, it's 4x squared. No, it's 16x squared. A lot of people put 4x squared. 4x times 4x is 16x squared. What goes here? A times B. So what's 4x times 1? Okay, that's 4x. And lastly, what's 1 squared? B squared. Well, 1 squared, 1's awesome. 1 times 1 is 1. Will this ever factor? No. We're done. We have factored. Again, don't forget the x out front, and then the inside, there's your sum of cubes. You do not want to distribute the x. You want to pull it out and leave it out. Okay, last one. We're going to solve. How do I know I'm solving? Do you see something called an equal sign? Whenever you see an equal sign, you're solving. Do you see equal signs on these? No. The directions would say factor. Just heads up. If they don't have an equal sign, you're probably factoring. If there's an equal sign, you're probably solving. So what we're going to do simply is we're going to factor first, because you can factor it to help you solve. What are they going to be here? What are the inside? What cubed gives you 8x cubed? That's 2x. And what cubed gives you 27? 3. A and B. It's going to be equaling 0. Now, this is a difference of cubes. So where's the minus going to go? A difference of cubes, the minus is the first piece. And then this plus and a plus. And then difference of cubes is a minus b, so 2x minus 3. Then we have a squared. Well, a squared, what's 2x times 2x? It's 4x squared. And what's a times b? What's 3 times 2x? That's 6x. Don't worry about negatives or positives. And then b squared, what's 3 squared? That's 9. So we factored the front piece, and we now have this. Remember zero product property? Can I set this equal to 0 and this equal to 0 and solve each? So set 2x minus 3 equal to 0. We're going to do that one first. That one's pretty easy. Add the 3 over. Divide by what? Divide by 2. So x equals 3 over 2. There's one answer. Do you guys see a nightmare coming? Guess what we're going to do? Set that equal to 0. Did I say that factors? Remember, this thing never factors. It's a quadratic formula. So now you have this, and you're going to have to use the quadratic formula to solve it. Okay? So, here we go. X equals negative b, so negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared, minus 4 times a is 4, c is 9, alright, all over 2 times a. So you now have x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 and what, 14 times 9, no, sorry, 16 times 9. We'll probably have to do that over here. 16 times 9 is 144. Let's see, 6 times 9 is 54. Is that 144? Okay, but that's a minus 144 over what? Looks like 8. 2 times 4 is 8. Okie dokie. So x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 108. Do you understand this is going to be imaginary? A lot of times they're imaginary. Okay. Now, 108. Great. Can we break down 108? We can pull out a negative 1. Does 4 go into it? Does 9 times 12?
Yeah, 9 times 12.
Okay, let's do 4. 4 goes into it how many times? Let's start with that. Right? But doesn't another square number go into 27? So, doesn't this one produce an I? This one produces 2. This one produces 3, right? Ain't crazy answer, but it's negative 6 plus or minus. What's I times 2 times 3? 6i square root 3 over 8. And one more fun little step. You can reduce that. My final answer, what goes into 6, 8, and 6? 2. So this is negative 3 plus or minus 3 square root 3 over 4. That's my final answer. That was, I, thank you. 3i. Don't forget the I. The I is pretty easy to forget. Okay? Don't forget that answer too. So, this has one real and two imaginary answers.